The room smelled like polished money and cold perfume, and the mirrors were honest in a way people weren't. Crystal laughed. It made a brittle sound that cut through the string quartet. "This is the fat pig we have to put up with," my son's new wife announced, guiding me into their circle like I was a party trick. Her sisters hid their smirks behind champagne flutes. Her mother gave me a once-over that felt like a stamp, inferior, permanent. I could feel the heat rising in my face, the old wiring that begged me to shrink, to smooth it over, to make everyone comfortable. I kept my shoulders back. My son froze. Half a step, half a breath, half a husband. He was young enough to think silence protects love. He didn't see how silence feeds wolves. I let them laugh. I let the sound roll over me like cheap waves on a hotel shore. And then their patriarch turned, the man with the watch that could buy a starter home, the voice that could end careers with a comment. He looked at me, really looked. The color left his face like someone had pulled a plug. "Wait," he said into the quiet heaved open by recognition. "Aren't you my new boss's wife?" The smirks stalled mid-lip. His daughters blinked, their smiles tearing like paper. Crystal's fingers loosened from my arm. I felt the room tip, a building redistributing weight after years of strain. My answer was simple. "Yes." He tried to recover, bless him, laughed too loud, hugged me like a man hugging a live wire. "Well, what a coincidence," he stammered, as phones dipped, as whispers seated in the corners. Of course, we meant no disrespect." He was the kind of man who had never learned to apologize without adding interest. But the daughters, the wife, the sons-in-law, they were on a delay, still catching up to the math. Crystal's mother leaned in. "New boss?" she asked her husband through a clenched smile. "Since when?" The quartet faltered, a violin string skidding into the truth. "Since the acquisition closed this morning," he said, barely breathing. "Since the board meeting, I left early to get to this rehearsal dinner." His eyes found me again, and this time they carried a tremor I'd seen on men who had to learn humility in a single afternoon. I could have savored the moment. I could have thrown the insult back across the marble like a blade. Instead, I watched my son. His jaw was tight, his eyes wet with that childlike panic adults hate admitting to. So I rested my hand over his, steadying him the way I did when he was 2, and learned the ocean can look friendly and still pull you under. "Let's eat," I said, like mercy, but the room wasn't ready to release its performance. Crystal reached for the mic she didn't deserve and never hesitated to take. "Since we're sharing," she trilled, "let's toast to blending families, some of us more successfully than others." She looked at my dress the way you look at a dent you're pretending not to see. "To new beginnings," she finished, "and workable standards." The polite laughter came back like insects. My son closed his eyes. I looked at the patriarch. Call him Howard. Call him the king of polished lobbies and silent elevators. And I saw the calculation lighting up behind his forehead. The lease agreements, the restructuring clauses, the little ways power translates into practical weather. He shook his head once. It was almost imperceptible. "Don't." She didn't see it. Predators rarely think the forest can turn. She lifted her glass higher. "To my new mother-in-law," she said, "may she learn which forks to use." The sound that followed wasn't laughter. It was the brittle crack of people realizing they just witnessed something irreversible. Here's the part you won't see on the carefully edited wedding video: the way the staff stopped moving, the way the event planner took one precise step toward the AV booth, the way the maitre d' looked to me, not to the money, to ask whether the room would remain civilized. "Crystal," I said, and my voice didn't tremble, "you've insulted me twice now, once on arrival, once in front of your family and mine." She smiled with her teeth, the way people do when they think cruelty is charm. "It was a joke." "Jokes need consent," I said. "So do marriages." She rolled her eyes. "You're sensitive." "I'm accurate." I turned to Howard. "We can end this here, with grace." He understood the word in a way his daughter never would. He reached for the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, but Crystal snatched it back with a reflex built from years of never being told no. "No, Dad, let her hear this," she snapped. "In this family, we don't coddle feelings. If she wants respect, she'll have to earn." The sound cut. The planner had killed her channel. Bless that woman. She glanced my way. I nodded approval I don't give lightly. Howard took the dead mic, placed it gently on the linen, and faced me with the formality of a man about to plead. Mrs. Klein, he said, using the name that carried across his industry, I am deeply sorry for my daughter's behavior. It does not reflect, it reflects perfectly, I said softly. It reflects what she's been allowed to get away with because money taught her that apology is optional and consequence is negotiable. If you've ever been humiliated and wished you could make the floor tilt, this is the moment you imagine at 3 a.m. But revenge isn't thunder, it's engineering. It's knowing where the weight sits and how to move it 1 inch so the whole facade remembers gravity. I didn't raise my voice. I raised my phone. A calendar opened to the merger close. A contact labeled GC-Final Docs. Howard, I said, you and I are going to talk as grown-ups. No microphones, no audience. We'll discuss culture and conduct and whether your daughter understands any of the words in either category. His eyes flicked to my son, and I watched a man decide to become decent in real time. Please, he said to the room, give us a moment. His wife tried to intercept. A glittering blockade. We don't need. He cut her off, quiet steel. We do. Then to me, equally quiet. The terrace? I nodded. We stepped outside into a dusk that was busy turning the sky into absolution. The city below didn't care about any of this. I liked that. It made people smaller and truth bigger. There's no world where I defend what she said, Howard began. There's only a world where I ask for a path forward that doesn't destroy a boy who didn't say it. I appreciated that he started there, with my son. Your daughter, I said, has been teaching him to be ashamed of me for months. It ends tonight, we didn't shout. We drafted. We built terms the way God might arrange weather if he were tired of people mistaking sunlight for approval. Here's what happens, I said. Crystal apologizes. Not a pretty Instagram caption. A real apology. To me, to my son, to the staff who heard her and learned something about what she thinks is acceptable. She attends the Foundation's summer program on equity and workplace dignity. She does the work. Or, I let the word live between us, a door with a handle he could see. Or you explain on Monday why your new CEO's spouse has concerns about this family's suitability for leadership on a company that employs 11,000 people from every zip code and accent. He inhaled, slow. You're asking me to pick between my daughter and my company. I'm asking you to pick between enabling abuse and modeling accountability. He looked out over the city. She will hate me, he said. For a year, I replied. Then she'll be grateful for the person she gets to become. He nodded, a small surrender to truth. And him? He asked, glancing toward the hall where my son stood in the kind of stunned posture you only see in men relearning themselves. He's a good boy. I can see it. He is, I said, and my throat tightened. But love will turn to rot if it's fed disrespect. He'll leave if it doesn't change. He should. Howard closed his eyes for a second, an old man making peace with a necessary hurt. Give me 5 minutes, he said. No, I answered. Take 3. Leave 2 for her to sit with it. When we went back in, the air had shifted. The sisters pretended to scroll. The mother pretended to glow. Crystal pretended to wait. Howard didn't stand behind a mic. He stood in front of his daughter. Apologize, he said. She laughed, a small, feral sound that didn't belong to a human adult. For a joke? For cruelty, he said. For the public degradation of a woman who raised the man you married. For poisoning your own future with a mouth that believes it's above the rules. She looked at me, not him. You did this, she hissed. No, I said. You gave me so much to work with. There's a particular silence that happens right before someone realizes the room won't protect them. She felt it then. The sisters lowered their eyes. The mother steadied her glass so it wouldn't shake. I'm sorry, Crystal whispered to the carpet. Look at her, Howard said. She lifted her chin. Her eyes were wet and furious. I'm sorry, she said to my face, for calling you a name. It was cruel. It was wrong. And, her father prompted, and I will attend the program, and I will keep your name out of my mouth unless I can use it with respect. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. She moved toward me, arms open, habit, not heart. I stepped aside. We're not that kind of family, I said, We earn things here. A few guests exhaled honest laughter, the good kind that doesn't need blood. The quartet found itself again and played something tender that felt like a truce. My son reached me, eyes searching. You okay? He asked. Are you? I said. He swallowed. No. Good, I answered. That means you're awake. He pulled me into an embrace I've needed since the first time he chose silence over me. I'm sorry, he said into my hair. I should have stopped her. You will, I said, or you'll stop this. He nodded against my shoulder like a vow. Revenge was never the point, but consequence, honest, clean, proportionate, can turn a stage into a classroom. The rest of the night was careful. Crystal sat with her sisters, who finally told her the truth women should tell each other when men aren't around. That cruelty is not wit, that money is not character, that you cannot love a man by cutting his mother down to size. The mother, hers, found me near the coffee station with eyes that carried 1,000 unsent texts. I didn't raise her to be like this, she said to the urn, not to me. But I also never told her to stop. I didn't pat her arm. I didn't make it easier. Start now, I said, or you will spend your old age apologizing to grandchildren who learned this from you. Howard called his driver, but stayed. He made sure we ate. He made sure my son laughed once, for real. He asked me about the foundation, about our hiring pipeline, about how he could use his name for something that didn't just bounce back to him as a compliment. I told him the truth. Write a check, then show up. He did both. If you're still here, listening, if any part of your chest is buzzing with the feeling that you've been laughed at by people who would crumble under half of what you've survived, stay. Hit like so this story finds the ones who need it. Subscribe so you don't have to carry this kind of night alone. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me the moment you chose dignity over comfort. Because the next morning, Crystal sent a real apology. Not just to me, but to my son, to the staff, to the planner who saved the night by cutting the mic. And then she showed up to the first session. Humbled, mean edges sanded by consequence. Will it hold? I don't know. People don't change because a contract says so. They change because the mirror finally frightens them into love. As for me, I put the dress back in its box and wrote my boy a letter. You are not small. You never were. Quiet isn't peace if it asks you to abandon yourself. He framed it. He moved it to their hallway when he decided to keep his marriage and change its terms. Howard calls sometimes to tell me what language he used when a board member made a joke that belonged to last century. He's learning. We all are. And every time a room tries to make me smaller, I remember how it felt when the music cut and the truth stepped forward. Simple, unadorned, undeniable. That's not revenge. That's repair.